states and 5 countries to over 750,000 people. He has extensively studied human behavior and development and is passionate about sharing the work of adult development theory, which helps explain why people make the choices they make and how to use this information to better ethically connect with and influence those around you. He has been invited to speak at the White House twice and to speak on the TEDx Talk stage 3 times. Aurel has been quoted in media outlets such as the New York Times, USA Today, Forbes, Black Enterprise, Huffington Post, and has been a contributor to TV shows like The Doctors. Please help me give a big welcome to our keynote speaker, Aurel Moody.
Thank you, Mike. So I'll never forget when I was in college, there was a motivational speaker came who said, you can be anything that you want to be here at college. So my father is Jamaican and my mother is Jewish. So I like to call myself Jamaican, by the way. But he said you could be anything that you want to be. So I decided to become a Dominican. I joined, this is me back in college. I joined a Latino fraternity, and I only bring this up because, one, it's a Greek university here, and I think that was funny. But there's actually a moment that happened that I thought was really fascinating. So some of my friends, so this is like me with hair and me at like the Puerto Rican Day Parade and me getting awards. Yeah, I call that hairrel. I'm Aurel. It's like 2 separate periods of time. But I remember me and my frat brothers, we joined a basketball tournament in undergrad. And when I was there was a visual that I just hadn't seen before. It was a rabbi who was playing basketball. So this is him right here. This is Rabbi Krieger. Big beard, yarmulke, and he was balling out of control, right? Like jumping, diving for balls, blocking shots, and it was just visually weird to me, right? So I went up to Rabbi Krieger afterwards and I said, "You're very competitive. I didn't expect you to be this competitive." And he said something to me I'll never forget. He said, "I'm not really competitive. I'm not very competitive. I just like to play basketball. And since this is a tournament, the more we win, the more I get to keep playing basketball." So I thought that was actually a brilliant lesson at the time, and I've actually taken it with me. As speakers, we like to speak. We should. I hope you like to speak or consult, right? I want to acknowledge the 3 consults as well. But you should do everything you humanly possibly can, right, to get more speaking engagements. That should be what we do all the time, because the more we get to speak, the more we get to do the thing we love more than anything else in the world. So I've been speaking for 17 years, and this is just a very quick video of recent times. But the reason I bring this up is I've been wildly obsessed with everything that I can possibly do to figure out how to get more speaking engagements since the beginning of time. For those of you who don't know, Eddie was actually the guy that when I was fresh out the gate, first year, 17 years ago, who I asked probably more questions to than anyone should ask anyone about speaking. I was like, how do I do this well? How do I do that well? And Eddie was the guy that, I don't know if you remember how much I bothered you to learn, how do I do this thing? I want to do this thing really well. You do it really well. How do I do it really well? So I got to like travel the country, speak in lots of different places, 48 states, 5 countries. And I'm constantly asking myself, how do I learn how to do this thing really, really well so I can continue to do more of it? That's really it. So am I competitive in the fact that I want to keep doing it? Yeah, because I care about impacting lives. I care about making a difference. And it's taken me to lots of cool places. So this is actually a show that's on Disney+. So I became a host of that show because of the stuff that I do from speaking. And I just, speaking has opened up an incredible world for me. I've got to travel to different countries. I've gotten to write best-selling books. I've got to be on TV shows. I've gotten to write best-selling books, as I mentioned. But at the end of the day, it really all comes down to I love the game of speaking. I love doing it. It's my favorite thing in the whole world. And for many of you, I'm sure you feel very much the same. That, and that moment when you see someone's switch turn in their eyes when they're looking at your presentation, that person who comes up to you afterwards and tells you how much you've impacted them. So my goal with this short period of time that we have here, I was just putting this in here because I thought, I spoke at AFLV, so I know your world kind of, sort of. This is me. That's Harrell when he spoke there. Yeah. Anyway, so my goal with you today is to talk about all of the ways to turn one speaking engagement into more speaking engagements, right? Because I know something about all really, really good speakers. All really, really good speakers primarily want to impact lives and make a difference. That's the speaking side. But the professional part of speakers, every single time you do a speaking engagement, I know what you are thinking. How do I turn this one into many more? We're always thinking that. And we will go do a presentation that maybe isn't paying us what we should be paid. If our belief is, it can get us more. But you know it's the best presentation, and you've all done this, I'm sure, where you get paid to speak to a room full of people who can then book you to speak. Is that not the best presentation in the whole wide world? I call that the dream stage, right? Like I'm getting paid to speak in front of people who are gonna come up to me. And how many times have you had someone come up to you and give you a card and say, oh my gosh, I'd love to speak to you. But here's what else happens when you're actually good at what you do. And this happens to all of you, I'm sure. How many of you have had this situation and it's very socially uncomfortable? You finish speaking and there's a crowd of people lining up who want to talk to you. And you see that person with a business card in their hand, but they're like 5 or 6 people down the queue. And you're talking to the person who's like, oh my God, when you were speaking, it was so important. And you want to be present, but you also want to grab that card real quick and be like, hold that. I'm going to have to. But what do you do? And this has happened to you if you've done this game long enough. That person is there waiting and they do this.
Oh my God. No, don't go.
And you go, but I can't, this is what I'm here for, but I know that I love doing this, so I want to do everything I can to do more of this, right? Does that make sense? You all follow me, right? So what I'm hoping to do is show you some very specific ways to make sure every speaking engagement you do, you can turn into more. I call it the, my name's Arel, and it just happened to have 2 R's and 3 L's, so I was like, the Arel! It's actually really a bad thing. I actually hate acronyms, but it just worked out that way, so we're gonna do it. So how do you turn one speaking engagement into more speaking engagements? If it's okay with you, I'd like to spend the rest of the time, now that I've talked a little about who I am, in case you didn't know who I am, not talking about myself anymore, and talking about very, very specific strategies you can start doing and using. Does that sound good?
Yes.
But the speaker in me can always be a speaker, so if you'd be so kind, turn to the person next to you, give them a high five, say you're awesome, and let's get started. It's never not gonna be there, okay. So, I'm gonna go through all 5 of these. If you'd like to write these down, you can, but this is all of the 5 things that I think really matter. It's rebooking, referrals, leads, leverage, long game, okay? I'm gonna give you some very, very specific things and strategies you can do for all of that, and it's very, very, I don't want to say easy, but simple. You know, easy and simple are 2 different things, you know? So let's go through all of them. Here we go. Now, I'm going to show you the ninja strategy and software that I use. Now, for full disclosure, I built the software. Why did I build the software? Because as a speaker for 17 years, by the way, has this ever happened to you? You speak and then someone comes up to you afterwards and goes, I want to be a speaker too. Do you ever have that conversation, right? So that happened to me, and the person who came to me happened to be a woman who just sold her software company. And she was like, I think I want to get into speaking. I said, cool. So I gave her the game. I said, this is how you get into speaking. This is how you do everything. And the more and more I kept talking to her about it, the more and more she kept saying, why is it done that way? Why is it done that way? That seems really inefficient. Why is it done that way? And I was like, yeah, I don't know. That's the way it is. It's very like handshake based, cloak and dagger. People don't really share things with other speakers. It's very secretive. Like you got to know someone who knows someone. They have to see you speak or be directly referred by you. Just like, there's no better objective ways to make decisions. I was like, no, there isn't. Like, this is what you got to do. And she's like, well, what if we fixed it? And I was like, I did not expect that question. Tell me more. And that kind of led to saying, let me build something that I wish that I had for me. And the worst thing that happens is I get to use it in my speaking business in perpetuity. The best thing that happens is what so far is happening. We've had thousands of speakers across the country who are using it, but it's still, we have so many more folks to use it. How many of you, by show of hands, have heard of Talkadot before? Okay, is anyone a user of Talkadot here? Okay, so we have a few of us. Okay, great. For those of you who don't know about it, great. For those of you using us, so good to meet you in person. I gotta give you, hold on, let me just give you this. Golly, hold on. This is very inappropriate, but I'm so excited about this. Here, we made these pins and stickers for our users. So since you guys are users, you get pins and stickers. Yeah, so you get a little pin, you get a little sticker, you get a little sticker, you get a pin, because we love our users. We love our users. Okay, all right, cool. So this is the strategy I use to do the RRLL, and the software we use is called Talkadot. So Let me be very clear, I'm not an advocate of selling from the stage. There's a lot of people who teach you how to pitch, and a lot of people will be like, here's how you sell. But as we know in our world, if you sell from the stage, you will get blackballed. You will not be invited back. It's a bad business, but you still want to get all of the leads in business. So what do? So I don't sell from the stage anymore. I simply ask the audience for their feedback. That's all I do. Now, no one's against that. Actually, everyone loves it. All of my hosts, when I show you what I'm going to do, they love it. I love it. It's a great win. Let's break down the process. Now, this is what a Talkadot slide looks like. It's a QR code with a very specific code. The way that it functions is very simple. We create this slide for you, and all you've got to do is insert this slide into your presentation. Now, we recommend inserting it right before you go into your closing. Typically, as speakers, we have a closing of some sort. I don't know what consultants do, so you just have to bear with me and make it work for you. Okay, yeah, right? Like there's some type of there's usually a keynote story, a call to arms, a Q to A one last thought, a quote, a stat, a challenge, an invitation. There's something we do to close. I do not recommend asking for feedback after you do that. Why? Because if you do a good job, you should get a round of applause. If you do a really good job, you should get a standing ovation. The worst thing you want to do is be like, hey, everyone, real quick, stop clapping. Don't rush up. Don't talk to me yet. Take your phones out, scan the QR, and give me some feedback. They're going to be like, no, it's not going to work, right? And then if you put the QR code up and say, thank you, give me your feedback, and walk up the stage, no one's going to do it. But what I found is that when you put this right before you go into your closing, right before you go into it, and you simply say, and I'll go into this more detail if you want it, but it's very simple. So once you've given the meat of your presentation, you simply go, out of curiosity, by a show of hands, how many people felt like they got some value out of here today? They should raise their hand and say yes. Well, I'd love to know what you thought about it. Only way I can get better at what I do is by hearing from you. I want to know what you liked about it so I can do more of it. I want to know what you disliked about it so I can improve upon it. So here's what I'd like you to do. Take out your phones right now. Be very descriptive because it works. You don't have to actually do it. I'm just telling you what to do. You want to be very descriptive. Take out your phones right now. Open up your camera app. Point to this QR code. This is going to pop up. As a thank you for giving me your feedback, I'm going to make sure everyone gets whatever it is, okay? A PDF, an audio. I like to give away my slides. It's the easiest thing for me to give away. A lot of speakers are fine with this. A lot of speakers are like, that's my IP. I will never give away my slides. Whatever you want to give away, it's up to you. But it's a carrot as a thank you for you doing it. Now, what I like to do as a little business practice, I like to tee up the thing I'm going to give away earlier in my presentation, right? So I make people want it. So I usually say this, because I usually give away my slides or a summary. I say, we're going to jump into this. If any of you like to take notes, this is a really good place to start. But if you don't like to take notes, don't worry, I got your back. At the end of my presentation, I'm going to give you access to everything we showed you here. So if you don't like taking notes, you can be locked in. And normally you actually hear an audible thank you. Like there's usually someone who goes, oh, and they put their, because they don't want to write notes. Because you know when you're writing, some of us, we write notes and it locks us in. And some of us writing notes, I missed something. So like if you like to take notes, by all means do so. If you don't, I'm going to give this all to you at the end. So then when I bring this up, I go, hey, remember I said I'd give you access to everything we talked about here today? Well, here's how you get it. And then I say, I'd love to know what you liked about it, blah, blah, blah. And as a thank you, I'll give you access to my slides. Everyone loves that whole process, okay? Now, what happens? After they give you their feedback, you get a report that looks like this, okay? This report gets auto-magically generated for you. This is very important because I know lots of people who say, I collect data, and I go, what happens to that data? Well, it sits in an Excel spreadsheet. Then what do you got to do with it? Well, I gotta go through it. How long does it take for you to go through it? Sometimes never, right? So people are really good at collecting data, horrific at analyzing it and using it and doing anything with it, right? So typically when people say, hey, I use SurveyMonkey or Google Forms, we're like, that's great, but what do you do with it? Then you got to go to Fiverr or Canva, and you think that's going to be 12 minutes, and it's not. You ever been on Canva and it's been 12 minutes? No, it hasn't. You're moving it around. You're like, why don't I just hire someone? It's like, because I got Canva and I paid for this, whatever. So the point is the data, and here's what's interesting. If we have time, I'll show you the actual experience from your audience perspective, but it's very beautiful, and we use something called branch logic. This is why it's so important. In that branch logic, we have a question that says, do you book paid speakers? If they say no, it skips any question that's related to booking you to speak. So if I'm in the audience, I'm not getting hit with questions that are irrelevant to me. You give me a Google Forms, you have to put in like all of the questions you want to ask. So if I go, do you want to book speakers? What's your name? How should I contact you? I'm going to get annoyed if I'm in the audience. But with ours, branch logic jumps that. So the next question we ask is, well, do you want to book Eddie? No. Branch logic jumps any other questions. But if they go yes, great. What's your contact information? What's your title? What's your organization? So we can get in touch. So what happens is the people who actually want to book you appreciate it. And the people who don't want to book you don't get nagged. So it's a very quick, and from start to finish, we've done over 150,000 of these surveys so far. It takes less than 2 minutes for people to go through ours, right? So it's very quick. So it's built that way. The reason why it's built that way is because for anyone who's ever done assessment before, there's something called survey fatigue. You ever start taking a survey halfway through, you go, ain't nobody got time for that, and you bounce, right? So we want to make sure that doesn't happen. So we're analyzing it and we're constantly optimizing. So we've built a flow that will get people to start to finish, and they do it within your presentation. It takes 2 minutes. If you want to go into the logistics of how to do it, I'm happy to do it. But I want to show you more of this, what you do with it, okay? So this report gets generated for you. It's got your quantitative data, how many people responded, how many found your talk valuable. This is a presentation I did a couple weeks ago. How many want to hear you speak again, engaging, interacting. So here's what's so valuable about this report. You get quantitative data. You can actually measure how valuable your presentations are. Right now, most of us don't measure how valuable we are. This is what we do. I haven't been to any of your websites, but I'm going to make a guess of what your website looks like. Just tell me if I'm right or wrong. It's got a big picture of you on it. It's got a big video of you on it. It's got a quote that says, "You were the best speaker at our entire conference. We love you." You've got some logos, I bet, from some places that you've spoken at. You got some pictures with your arms around a couple of audience members, as diverse as you can possibly make it, so people know that you're relevant and available to all people. And it's got a click for your bio, and a click for your presentations, and a click for your contact. I'm willing to bet that's probably what all your websites look like. Not to say there's anything wrong with it, but when we interview event planners, they know something. Your testimonials are the ones you put on your website. I've never seen anyone put on their website, I was the 17th highest rated speaker at the conference. We don't do that. We're always the best. But how do I measure the best, right? Like, how do you know someone is the best? There's a reason, by the way, without going too much into this, why if you go on Amazon, you make purchases very particularly. What's the number one thing you look for to buy something on Amazon? Ratings, social proof. I don't care. I don't know if I've ever read a description on Amazon once. I go, I want the thing. What do other people who actually use the thing have to say about it that I know is not like when I go to someone's website and they put reviews, I don't trust it. Do you do that? Like if you want to buy like socks or whatever from a company you've never heard before, and on their website, 5,000 people give it 5 stars. You're like, I don't trust it. Because I know you control it. When I go to Amazon, I go third party. That's why we care about Google reviews and Yelp, and why restaurants live and die by Yelp, and they say, please give us a good rating. Because if you're in Atlantic City and you've never been to a restaurant before, and you check out the reviews and it says 27 people say it's great, but this group says 250 people say it's great, you're probably gonna go to the one with 250 people, right? We don't have anything like that in the speaking industry. Everything is subjective. So what we're hoping to do is take audience feedback and turn it into something that's objective. When you have objective feedback that cannot be edited, you now have the ability to quantifiably measure the value you actually bring. Now, here's what I do with it. I recommend doing the same. The very first thing that I do with this report, as soon as I get it, is I turn it into these social media shareable images. Now, right here, and again, if you want, I can show you how the actual software works, but when you click on share this report, images like this get automatically generated for you. You don't have to do anything. So it takes your data and turns it into social media shareable images, okay? So I've got my quantifiable, and I can now click on these 3 dots right here and turn any of these testimonials into a nice social media easily share image. So the first thing that I do, as soon as I get off stage, I talk to people, I have a good time. I'm not stressed out about anything because I've already captured all the leads who want to book me to speak. I'm going to show you how to do that. I've already captured it. So I'm having a good time. The moment I get a chance to breathe, I focus on my rebooking efforts. The way that I do that is on site, I will text those images to my host on site if they're not physically there. If I'm not physically with them. If they are physically with me, I will show them the data. And it looks like this. Mike, do you mind being my guest? Sure, right. I go, hey, Mike, thank you so much for having me here, brother. This was really good. I just want to show you the data real quick that I got.
Yeah.
Look, 99% of people said it was valuable. 85% of people said they want to bring me back. 99% said that this was engaging, inspiring, relevant. So, and this one person said, it's the greatest thing that ever happened. This was worth my whole admission, blah, blah, blah. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Like, we made a big impact. Thank you so much, brother.
It's incredible.
Yeah, thank you, brother.
Great job.
Yeah. That's what it sounds like. That's all I do. Immediately. Let me tell you why I do that. Immediately on site, through a conversation or a text. When you get off stage, I know what you're thinking. How'd I do? Did I suck? What we all think as speakers that we never admit? Is this the one presentation where I blew it? We can have 7,000 previous presentations where we kill it, but every single one we go, is this the one? And for us who are always dealing with imposter syndrome, me included, listen, I've done this a billion times, I'm always thinking this is gonna be the one where like the tide turns and I'm no longer in favor, like I've been doing really well, and this is, and there's always that anxiety of it. So I check it, one, for me, but you know who else has that same anxiety? Your host. Did my audience resonate with it? Even if they loved it, it doesn't matter if they loved it. Now here's what all of your hosts do if you're not aware. They walk up to speakers, audience members, and they go, what'd you think about the speaker? Or they do this. They see attendees gathering after your keynote, and they go by just to listen to what they're talking about. Are they talking about you, or are they talking about the brownies? If they're talking about the brownies, you didn't do a good job. But if they're like, oh my gosh, that speaker said this, and oh my God, that they want to hear that, okay? But if I'm speaking to a room full of 500 people, am I gonna have 500 people who like me? No, okay, no. I've been doing this for a long time. I still, rarely, right? And look, this happens to be a good report, so I'm very proud of it. 99% found it valuable. I have 237 people. 94% said that they want to hear me again, right? So that's great. But there's 12 people who don't want to hear me again. I want to be very clear, okay? 237 people loved it. 12 people didn't. You know what we do as speakers, by the way? We only care about that number. I love speakers. You know what I love about speakers? Because you guys, I love talking about people because you guys get me, right? Stadium full of people. You're crushing it. There's that one person like this. And you're like, I'm gonna convert them into a believer before this presentation. It's like, yo, they could have had a fight with their spouse. They could have been tired. They could have you don't know what happened to them. I see those people. I feel empathy for them. I don't try to convert them anymore. And I care about everyone who's actually right? That's where I focus on. So I know we like to think about this number a lot, but here's what I think about. What if my host meets these 12 people after my keynote? What if, and this has happened to me, I've had people who dislike me, really dislike me. Everyone else loved me, but you can't get everybody. And yes, you should try to get everybody, but you can't. And if you don't believe me, good luck in trying. How's that going for you? Okay, you can't get everybody. So, but what my fear is what if those 12 people are gathered, hypothetically together, talking about how much I suck, and then the host goes, well, that was trash. I'm gonna call Mike and be like, I'm never bringing that person. You know what I'm saying? That's possible. And by the way, we only need one negative review for us to not trust something. Unless it's a stupid negative review. You go on Amazon, you see I wanted it here on Tuesday and it got here on Wednesday. Man, 1 star. You're like, take it easy, right? That's not the product's fault, that's the delivery. So we know how to discern, but if someone is like, hey, I wanted to buy this new soup, I was like, I don't know, I've been getting targeted for this healthy ramen noodle soup. Has anyone else been? Okay, anyway, my Facebook algorithm says I like tasty, and I do. I was like, I actually love ramen, but maybe, and it's not so sodium. But I go on Amazon, everyone's like, it tastes horrible. So now I go, I'm not buying it. But if they said it tasted good, I would have bought it, right? So it doesn't take too many really scathing reviews. Now, if subjectively I'm just listening, I can hear something negative and move on, but everyone else loved it. So what I like to do right after my presentation is share the quantitative data, and I like to choose 2 of my favorite testimonials. I like to do that on site because I want them to be in a positive mind frame about me, okay? So I share this with them and I say, thank you so much. Now, what has happened in my case 9 out of 10 times is they call someone else over to look at the data. Joe, come here. Becky, come. Or they say, can you send that to me? I want to forward it. Why? Because every single event hosting conference is used to collecting data and getting it weeks later. They don't get it instantly. They don't. How many of you have ever spoken at a conference and they had a conference app that gave you feedback and you wanted to get that feedback? How long did it take for you to get it?
6 months.
If you get it. If you get it. Yeah. And typically it's like I just spoke at a conference, they had 22 people give feedback on my session on their app. I got 237 when I did it this way. So I have a larger data set. So my data set is more trustable, and that's how, without going into data, that's how data works. The larger the data set, without getting like too large, I think like 1,000 is like, after that, I won't go into that because that's a little geeky, right? But my point is, I want them to see it right away, and it's beautiful. It's not SurveyMonkey reports that you've screenshotted and thrown into a Word document, right? It's actually beautiful. So what happens is typically they share with other people, and I know how humans think. If they start saying that, now they have positive intent about me. So when they're thinking about me and talking about me, positive intent is there. So I had a good experience seeing it, but now I have the data to prove it actually was really good. Their desire to bring me back is great. We have a super high rebooking rate, I still do some college presentations now. I do a lot of in the corporate space and a lot in the association space. Still, like I'm literally going to a college. Does anyone have orientation? Does anyone do I've been with the same college in orientation for 12 years in a row. I got that, right? So I still go to some places all the time. But I like the idea of mailbox money in this game because we don't have it. That's keynote fees. You don't have mailbox money. That's the crazy, all right, real quick. The crazy thing about our industry, you could crush it in 2022 and suck in 2023. You could. The work you do in the past does not guarantee the work that you're going to get in the future, right? So after a keynote is done, you got to hunt. You got to constantly, in this world, we're constantly hunting, we're constantly farming. And if you're not constantly hunting and not farming, you're going to starve. That's how it works. So for anyone who goes, oh, Mike's going to take care of everything, I'm like, it's not how it works. You always got to be hunting and you always got to be farming, always. So the moment a presentation's over, I'm always going, how do I get that rebooking? Because if they rebook me, and we have about a 50%, our calendar, about 50% is rebooking, right? Sometimes it goes a little more, sometimes it goes a little bit less. But I know half of my revenue is kind of locked in because I do a lot of things like this, okay? So this is rebooking. Any questions about this before we move on? Solid? Okay. Now, next thing I do, I send a follow-up email after the event's over. If it's a multiple day conference, I typically wait a day or two after the conference is over, okay? Why? Because in the conference, they don't care about you. They're moved on to the next speaker. The day they fly home, they don't care. They don't care about you. They still got their out of office email message on the thing. So I wait usually a day or two. If it's like a college event, it's easy. You could do this the day of. And all of this is ready. We have a template that you could just copy and put in your stuff, right? But this is what I do in the email. I'm going to tell you the basics of it. I'll give you this if you're interested in having it, happy to. But here's why this follow-up email. This is a really crude analogy, but just bear with me. I'm not asking about your personal life. I don't care. I don't know if any of you have ever had a one-night stand or given someone a one-night stand or received a one-night stand. I don't know. I don't care. But what I can tell you is if you really like someone and they never contact you again, it feels very hurtful. And then the only time the person who you had that one-night stand with contacts you is when they want some more. You do that when you don't talk to your host and then you go, do you want to rebook me 6 months later? It's a one-night stand. It's dirty. It's uncomfortable. And if you're doing that, stop it. I'll give you a little technique, a little bonus strategy. Ah, jeez. Okay, all right. Okay. Do you have text relationships with your hosts? If you don't, I'm going to tell you how I get into a text relationship with my host. I keep it professional, but this is what I do. Hey, can I have your cell phone so that when I land, I can text you to let you know that I landed so everything's good and safe? Yes, every part of our pre-event planning, every host gives me their cell phone number. Because we say we want to text you because every host has a fear you're not going to show up. Every single one. If you are not texting them to say, I got on my plane, I just got off, I got my car, I'll see you tomorrow. If you're not doing that, you better start doing that. That's customer service 101 because they're thinking, you're like, oh, I'm on my way, but their whole time is like, did they miss their plane? Because you wouldn't hire bad speakers, but there are a lot of speakers that would miss a plane and just be like, oh, I can't make it the day of. I know you would never do that, but I have seen it enough times, and I know you have, where people just don't care. Wow. So I'm texting constantly, but you know what happens when I text them to let them know I'm landing? Now we're in a text relationship. Now it's not weird for me to text them because you know what? A 20-minute phone call to kick it is a waste of their time and a waste of my time. But I can send a text, and I do it all the time. And I'm like, hey man, just thinking about you. I found this meme. I thought it was funny. I want you to check it out. Hope all is well. Doesn't take me more than 2 seconds to do. And I send the same message to like in my phone, I like put like a little thing that they're like a client, so it's very easy for me to find them versus having to go through my whole thing. But I just literally boop, 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 maybe take me 15 minutes. When other people on like Angry Birds or whatever app they're on when they're standing in line, I'm just like, oh, I have a little positive message, boop, 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 boop. And I hit this all of them. I'm not asking for anything. I'm just creating a text relationship. Because if I'm top of mind, I like doing the work, so I want you to understand. It's not like I'm hustling them. I love doing this work, but I also know if I don't say top of mind, they move on. Okay? So I send a follow-up email. This follow-up email highlights what went really well in my presentation. Okay? Look at this. 99% found the talk valuable. 94% want to hear me speak again. And by the way, I referenced that. We should definitely see where it makes sense to do an additional training for your group, maybe in this particular group, I put maybe a longer workshop, because that's what people said, and we wanted a longer workshop. That's what they said, right? So look, 94% said they want to hear me speak again. You ever have this awkward conversation? Hey, I like the presentation. You like the presentation. Maybe we should do it again sometime, right? That's subjective. I point to the data and I go, they want me back. Let's do it. I got these other presentations. They're going to love it, right? So my data does it. I don't do it, okay? This is very, very important. The next thing that I do is I say this. You can use whatever language you want. I say, like, if you like me, I love measuring impact, and I want to provide some insight from my speaking engagement for your review. I encourage you to take a look at this report, which is a link to the full report. Please, this is very important. Please share this with your planning team so they can see the impact we had together, especially if anyone wasn't able to attend my presentation. I'll give you a little insight. You know the people who book you, they're part of a committee. No, rarely, it happens, but rarely one person makes the decision. Typically what happens is there's a group of people that sit down and they go, we want to bring in Eddie, how do we bring him in? I also, well, you want to bring in Eddie, but I want to bring in Sarah, I want to bring in John, I want to bring in Margarita, and then they decide who, and then eventually they say, we think this person is the best speaker. Now, what I have discovered in my career is that 9 times out of 10, all of those people are not in the room when you speak, right? They're not. They're running around doing the stuff that they're doing. You know who's almost never in the room when you speak? The person who signs your check. The chief financial officer, the VP of finance, they're not in your presentation, but they are the one who writes that big old check for you and go, what the hell is this for?
No.
Why the hell are we writing this big ass check for an hour? $4,000 to $10,000 or whatever it might be. I like them to get my data report because how many speakers make sure that guy gets it? Well, I mean, our speakers do, right? If they're like following what we tell them to do, and hopefully you will too. Do you understand why that's so powerful? Because I've never seen you or heard you, but now, wow, look at this ROI. We've got measurable data to prove that you are worth this spend, and simply because they don't get that from anyone else, who do they want to have back? And if you don't know this, I assume you do, but I like to just like cover as much ground as I can. Every single person on campus who likes you is a person who's going to advocate for you to be your champion, for you to come back. The administrative assistant, you know, I think, what was your name? Brandy, I saw you compliment the worker out there just because that's the right thing to do. That is the right thing to do. And I assume you're a good person, that's why you did it. But strategically, imagine if everyone on your campus loves you. The sanitation worker, the administrative assistant, the chief financial officer. Who do they want to work with? The person they like, the person they want to have come back, the person who's going to compliment people for no reason. Now, I don't know what will come from that, but I can promise you, if the manager of this place goes, well, what did you think about those Greek University people? She's going to be like, I love them because of that interaction. Because I bet you most people will not do that. You see what I'm saying? And I'm sorry for sounding you out because I know it was a personal moment that you were just having with a person, but I think that's beautiful because most people don't do stuff like that. I do. I recommend you do too, because if everyone is your champion, and by the way, I have come back to places where half of the people didn't want to bring me back because they had me so many times in a row. But my champions are so loud. Why take the risk on someone else? We know he's good. We all like him. Why? Well, we don't want to bring the same. He can do a different presentation. Like, they've had these conversations with me. They have these conversations about you. Okay? Okay, so I send that email. I reference it. I want them to share it. And it's easy for them to share. And again, most people don't do that. Leverage. Okay, so we talked about rebooking. Let's talk about leverage. Now, I did RRLLL, but the R's and the L's are not in that. Like, I'm going RL. Just, it doesn't matter. I was trying to make it like kitschy and whatever. Okay, so I'm gonna cover all the points, just not in order. Okay, leverage. The next thing I do, here's what I know about all speakers. You finish a speaking engagement, I know exactly what your presentation post looks like. Just did an amazing presentation at Saltwater State University. We impacted so many lives. Here's a picture of me on stage. Here's a picture of me with my arms around people saying how great I was. That's the post we make, right? That's the post we make. Now, here's the funny thing. You could be on stage, but how many events have you been at where you've been on stage and the speaker sucks? So you could be on stage, it don't mean you were good. I know tons of speakers who suck. They just happen to get on stage and how do you know? Now, what I like to do is still post that picture and still post the same thing. But my social media post constantly has my data. As long as I did a good job. Like, if I sucked, I don't post the data, right? But if I did a good job, right, I'm putting my qualitative data, my testimonials, plus my quantitative data, okay? Right? And this goes on my LinkedIn. And what I love about LinkedIn is they tell you impressions, not just likes. Like, Facebook only tells you likes. I'm a big LinkedIn fan. If you're not on LinkedIn, it's actually a very nice social media site. Have you noticed that? Yes. Instagram's mean sometimes. Facebook can be mean. Twitter, oh my gosh, that's like a war zone. LinkedIn is nice. Everyone's nice. Anyway, so I have moved out of all social media. I'm not getting on Threads or TikTok personally, so LinkedIn is where I'm at. But what I like is that it shows that 1,749 people saw this, even though 65 people liked it. So an impression is still valuable, right? And you can see that on LinkedIn, so I like that. But here's what's happened to me, okay? I've had people say, you keep posting this fire data, or whatever language, I'm using that word. They wouldn't use that probably. But you keep posting this great data, I'd love to bring you in. So I've reactivated past clients who are in my LinkedIn network, who haven't worked with me, because they're not only seeing me on stage, but they're seeing what people are saying about me and they're seeing my data, and it's consistently good. So leverage is very important because of compounding. I think a lot of speakers, they don't realize that they do this, but their efforts don't compound. You go to a conference once, if you go to AFLV once, you're not gonna get business, typically. You might, but if you go there 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5, you're compounding. Now they look forward to seeing you again. You go to APCA once, you go to NACA once, you go to NOTA once. You see fly-by-nighters all the time. But the people who are doing it over and they're compounding their interest. It's leverage. So I like to compound. I don't like to just randomly go, I'm gonna go over here, I'm gonna go over here. Like, if I choose one, I'm gonna be back, even if I don't get anything. If that's the clientele I wanna get, I'm gonna go there, boom, 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 right? This helps you get that leverage, that compound effect as well. Now, the other thing that I like to do is what I call land and expand. If you're not doing land and expand, you should, because it works really, really, really well. Now, this data is for FSAE, it's the Florida Society of Association Executives. Basically, it's an association for association executives. It's very meta. I take my data from one, and then I leverage it to get Washington Society of Association Executives. You can do the same thing, Greek University, right? Okay. Hey, Michigan State University, I just did this great program at Grambling University. Here's what my data is. I'd love to do it for you. I just need to land one in any vertical, and I'm gonna expand the hell out of it. So you did one Greek presentation or student leadership presentation or DEI, whatever it is. As long as you got one and you got data, then I go to whoever is their counterpart that's most likely to know who they are, and I go, hey, I just did an event with these people. Here is an unedited report of how it went. Here's a speaker video, what I can talk about. Let me know if you think this would be a good fit for your group as well. Well, I'm gonna do two things. The first thing I'm gonna do is probably look at your stuff, if I'm them. I'm gonna look at your video, but I'm gonna look at the data, and then if I like you, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna call my counterpart if I know who they are. What you think about this person? But the data helps objectify, because I could subjectively go, I was there, but I could have sucked. But like if 237 people said it was good, well, now it has my interest. I'm using data to leverage more. I land one, and then I just expand. I'm not gonna go get an orientation presentation and then go reach out to a student leadership office, and then reach out to a multicultural affairs office, and then reach out to a CDC, Career Development Center, which you should never reach out to a CDC. I don't know, they have I don't know if it's changed. CDCs have no budget, Career Development Centers. Be like, oh, I'm gonna show people how to get jobs. I'm like, good luck. Once they graduate, they don't care. Anyway, we'll move on. But what I like to do is I land one and then I expand. And I use my data from one to be my proof point on why they should consider me. And if I hit up 50 people who are the same type of avatar as the event that I did, you don't think I'm gonna get one? Of course I am, okay? Of course I am. Now, leads from any questions about that? I'm going fast because I'm trying to give it to you. Yes?
I'm fairly new to speaking specifically in higher ed, but question.
Yeah.
Yesterday, Tom shared we talked about how to apply for NGLA as an example, and there's a Google forum and has set questions. When do you send?
In the description.
Okay.
I always say this in my descriptions when I do it. We quantify
Right.
all of the results of this program. Click here to see the data.
Oh, okay.
So I give the description as I normally would, but then I let them know I quantify it. Most speakers don't do any form of assessment. So that's in the description all the time, every time. And that's how, by the way, that's how I got WSAE. I filled out their CFP, call for presenters, right? But I put my data in it with a link, because I know no one else does that. That's what I like to do, stuff no one else does, right? It's a great question. Yeah.
So I was curious, the first time that I used Talkadot, I loved it, and like you mentioned, you focus on the few that are like, this totally didn't resonate, when you have tons of others, great presentation, great speaker. And so we know that our clients are smart, and they know that not everyone's going to resonate and love every speaker. So do you ever address those few, or they know, they understand, and so I just sent the report.
I actually like when I have bad scores.
Because it shows.
It's real.
Yeah.
If 100% like me and 100% find me engaging and every single comment's positive, the first thing they're gonna think is you edited it.
Right.
If I'm sending you a document that says, 12 people didn't think I was valuable,
Right.
who does that?
Right.
No, it's great that you address that, because so many speakers go, but what about that testimonial where they said that wasn't their cup of tea? And it's like, good, because everyone else's website is 100% perfect. Every speaker I've ever seen is 100% perfect, and there's no 100% perfect speaker. The reason why I trust Amazon and Yelp is because I know that it's real. So if it's 50% bad, and 100 people gave you feedback and 50% hated you, I would not share that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You have to go back to the drawing board, because there's something that needs to get rejigged if that percentage. But there's always, my rule is 5%. That's my personal rule. If I have 5% of an audience or fewer that hate me, I'm nailing it. If I have 5% or more, I gotta go back and rejig. Maybe I'm using language. And here's the other thing that's great about the qualitative data, which I didn't mention. You'll get 1% changes that no one will ever say to your face. Perfect example that happened to me. I used to say, talking about choice, and I was like, hey, there are some people who have obesity that runs in their family, and they go, I'm not gonna work out, I'm not gonna eat healthy, my family dies from obesity, I'm gonna die from it as well, so I'm gonna enjoy the ride while I can. Then there are other people who say, it doesn't matter if obesity runs in my family, I'm gonna exercise, I'm gonna work out, I'm gonna do everything that I can because I wanna control what I control and whatever be would be. I used to give that analogy all the time. One presentation, I had 10 people say I was fat shaming. And I was like, no, I'm not fat shaming. So then I go, I'm gonna change it. So I changed that story to, there's some people who have heart disease that runs in their family. Some people don't exercise and they don't work out because they go, everyone in my family dies of heart disease. But other people say, it doesn't matter if my family has heart disease, I'm gonna eat healthy. So now I haven't gotten one negative comment. But you know what? Before, I wasn't collecting feedback. So I'm going, what are all of the things I'm You can get canceled real quick in 2023 for something that was very unintentional. So who's gonna walk up to me and have the courage to say, I felt like you were fat shaming when you said that, you shouldn't do that? Really, no one. Now, if someone gives me negative feedback like, I don't like your bald head, I don't like your New York accent, you remind me of Shamar Moore, but like his less successful brother, Shamar Less. Like, I can't do anything about that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't. But if it's like, oh, I can do something with this, yeah. So anyway, I'm going a little bit more than I probably should to your question. But I like that because it shows it's real. And my host is going to appreciate it. And it hasn't deterred anything. It hasn't deterred, in my experience, in the speakers. Like, I haven't had any speaker go, someone was going to hire me and they didn't because, you know. So that's what I would say. Yeah. We'll move on. Okay, good questions. I love these questions. Okay, leads from your audience. Let's talk about the fun stuff. This is the stuff you can do for yourself. The stuff you can send to Mike. This is great. In our feedback, and I just blurred this out because this is actually real contact information. But if anybody wants me to show it, because we're recording it, I don't want it to show up, right? When you are done in your Talkadot account, if you click My Leads, everyone who says that they want to book you, they've given you their contact information, goes into this category. Now I have 269 people over the last year and a half who've said that they want to book me from speaking engagements. This is the people I follow up with. Now, in that group of bookings, you're going to find 3 categories of people. The first category is, I want to book you right now. That's wonderful, but that's not everyone. The second is, I want to book you, but like, I don't have an event coming up. Or I have an event coming up, you already have a speaker. But yes, I would like to book you in the future, okay? So like, build that relationship. And then the third is, I was just so jazzed by Brandy. She was amazing. I just want her to contact me. Yes, I book speakers, right? So you've got to kind of figure out which one of the 3 they are. So I do a quick follow-up email to all of them. Thanks so much. You said you want to book me. Would you like to jump on the phone and talk more about it? At that point, they'll be like, oh, no, I can't actually book you right now. Or, oh, I'd love to book you, but like, we don't have anything coming up. Or let's jump on the phone. Okay, so you'll get one of those 3 answers. But just because they can't book me now, a lot of people go, oh, man, you're dead to me now. That's stupid. Don't do that. Build a relationship with them. I'll show you how to do that in a bit. Okay? Those are bookings. You can download these as a CSV file if you wanted to. You can send them to Mike and be like, Mike, you know, I just spoke at this conference. Giddy up, you know. Or you can do it yourself. Because one of the things that you have a benefit with Mike that other people don't, which I think is awesome, is you never get to be the bad guy. Because let me tell you what, I know, has anyone ever had this conversation and it's very uncomfortable? Everything's going great. You're talking to them, they're talking to you, they love you, blah, blah, blah. And then the question comes up that every one of us hates. How much does it cost? Don't you hate that question? Yes, don't you hate that? What's your speaker fee? And then you're like, oh, it's So you go from this lion to this sheep real quick for some of us. And then others, we quote it and the person almost falls out of their chair. Right? Or goes, ah! I thought you were for the people. Right. Which is what you never want to, you never want that to be the reason why people don't think you're for the people, right? So then what happens typically is that's a very uncomfortable conversation for most of us. It's very uncomfortable, right? Now, what's great about Mike is that you can do everything, get them like super excited and be like, oh my gosh, we want to do a contract. Great, let me get you in touch with Mike. He's going to handle it. Now, here's the truth. And you could, so I'm part of, you guys familiar with NSA, National Speakers Association? So I'm part of the $1 Million Speaker Group, right? So it's a group of people that make $1 million in their business, and there's like 100 of us out of like the thousands, 7,000 people that are in NSA, right? So it's a very small group of people. So I always like to ask them a lot of questions. None of them book their own speaking engagements. None of them. Why? Because I can't get what I'm worth. He can. You see what I'm saying? Because he can go 10,000. You go 10,000, and then what do? Is there any way you can work with us? Our budget is not what it used to be, and you don't want to be a jerk, so you go 5,000. That's what we do. Oh, and you want to hear a little joke? I only want to give y'all game because like Mike's here and like Eddie is the man to me, right? So I'll give y'all game. A lot of times they have the budget, but they're taught always say you don't have the budget. That's how negotiation works. I know a lot of nonprofits. If you're not familiar with their 990s and you're not familiar with GuideStar, you should check out their GuideStar 990 because you can see their tax returns because they're public. I won't go into all that because that's outside of this presentation, but it's public, it's free, and you can see exactly line item on how much they spent on marketing, conferences, and events. So if they spent $12,000 on it for the whole year, yeah, they ain't got no money for you. But if they spent $3 million on it, yeah, they could probably afford you. You see what I'm saying? But they're told it doesn't matter how much money we have, tell them we don't have money. because they will always come back, right? He can go, look, it's 10. Maybe he gets you 9.5. Okay. But you would go down, you know what I'm saying? Like that's how it was anyway. So it's really, really wonderful that you have Mike, because you have the ability to always be the good person, and then you never have to talk about money. You just talk about impact, which is ultimately like, you know, going back to the basketball thing, we want to keep winning because we like doing the work that we're doing. And the more money we have, the easier it is for us to continue to do the work that we're doing, and it creates a virtuous cycle, okay? So you can get the booking leads and then give it to Mike, okay? Referrals. Now we ask people, do you book speakers? No, yes, or no, but I can introduce you to someone who does. Next question is, do you want to introduce them? Yes. Give us your contact info. So I had 489 people in the last year say, I can't book you, but I want to introduce you to someone. Now, I want to find out, what does that mean? Are you an influencer, like an assistant director who can't sign the contract, so you need your ED to confirm it? Or are you that type? Or are you like, my husband or wife is on the board of the National blah, blah, blah association, you know, and I want to find out what kind of introduction. Is it a real intro? Or is it like, if I could intro you, I would. You were that good, right? There's always that third category, right? So you got to be okay with that third, because it exists. But these are the people that I get to like build a relationship with, okay? Then this is the one that I think is still the long game. I think if you give me 100 speakers who are sucking, no one plays the long game. 100 out of 100 don't. If you look at speakers who are crushing it, they're always playing the long game, okay? So what's the long game? Your email opt-ins. Respectfully, not to disrespect anyone in this room, but respectfully, how many of you build your email list every time you speak? Yeah, see, that's why he runs Greek University. That's how it works, right? And it's not to be disrespectful to anyone here, right? It's not, but I know this about speakers. We don't have lists. How many people have you spoken to in your career? How many of them are on your list? You see what I'm saying? It's a huge opportunity we miss every single time we speak. And a lot of times, us, especially in the college market, well, I don't want to build a list because they're like going to be gone in a year anyway. There's tags. Once people graduate and they let you know that you can just tag them and then send different emails. It's like, again, outside the scope of what we're doing here, but it's not that hard. It's literally, you can send an email out, are you still in college, are you not? Like in May, congratulations to everyone who's graduated. Let me know if you graduated. I got a cool thing I want to give you. Click here to get the cool thing. And if they click on it because they graduated, you just tag them automatically. It's just an email that goes out automatically. Anyway, I won't go too deep because that's outside the scope of this. But my point is, where do those people go after they graduate? Work. Yeah. Has anyone here ever been booked by someone that saw you speak in college that now works at a corporation? It happens. It happens all the time. Hey man, you spoke at my thing when I was like 19 and now they're like 26 and you're like, what? It's weird. Right. Anyway, so what's great about what we do with Talkadot is, so I've added 2,671 people to my email list. These are people that I send out, hey, I just spoke at this event and it was great and we covered these things. Or, hey, if you're looking for a speaker, reach out. So now I have people I can reach out to all the time. And I can do, if you like Gary Vee, jab, jab, right hook. I don't know if you're familiar with the jab, jab. So lots of jabs. And I need throw a right hook. Basically a jab is no ask content. And then a right hook is an ask. Right? So now you got people, yo, can you believe what's happening in Florida? We were talking about that earlier. Can you believe what's happening? Here are some great things. Or here's 12 ways that people can use consulting to be, much better. Or here's 18 ways leaders can be better. You have all this content sitting in your head. You write it once, and then what I like to do, if you want can we go a little over? We're over. We didn't start exactly on time. I want to give you as much as I can here. Okay? Absolutely. I do a Facebook post first about something I want to talk about, and then that turns into my email. So I'm posting content on Facebook or LinkedIn anyway, and if you're not, you should, at least a little bit. And then I copy it, and I put it into my drip sequence for my email list. So every time I'm producing content anyway for social media, I now once it's on social media, what happens after a week? It disappears. It ain't in no one's algorithm. You know that Facebook post and LinkedIn post that you spent 2 hours writing? Editing your podcast? How long does that take, or who do you pay to do that? And you throw it on social media, and within a week, it's in no one's algorithm. But when it's on your email drip, someone's going to get the email eventually. And then every day you're slowly, and I've built out like, 50 emails that are quality emails based on Facebook posts that I think are good, that when someone jumps into my email list, they get put into a sequence, and they're getting an email once a week, and I'm never doing anything. It's from stuff that I post, it's evergreen content. Like, don't post about like a law that happened today and put that in your drip sequence because it's not evergreen. But if you have evergreen content, you just throw it in there, keep it moving, and then when people come in, they just get it. It's great, and that's the long game. And I think most speakers, they don't see the value of it because speakers are very transactional. I see this like people walk up to someone, can you book me? No, and then they're dead to them. Can you book me? Yes. Oh, I love you, and oh my God, we're your best friends, and we're gonna have a great relationship. Oh, you can't book me, you're dead to me. And it's like, play the long game. Like there's, what is the quote? There's no traffic in the extra mile. There's the extra mile. Do we all know what ChatGPT is? Yes. I don't have to spend any time backgrounding. I will not. Sometimes you're like, what? Artificial what you say? And I'm like, bro, it's gonna change your life. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna show you some stuff. Okay, first thing I do, when you have data and ChatGPT, you can do crazy stuff. We're eventually gonna probably build this into the tool directly so you don't have to jump out of the tool and go into the ChatGPT. We don't have the integrations yet, but we wanna build this because I think it's genius. Okay, step number 1. I create case studies with my data. The prompt is, hey ChatGPT, please turn this data into a case study for me. I go into all those qualitative testimonials, I copy them, and I paste them into ChatGPT. I take my quantitative data, and I paste it into ChatGPT. And all I say is, hey ChatGPT, please turn this data into a case study. This is what ChatGPT did, okay? So I spoke to a group called Chautauqua Opportunities, the impact, this is all, no one pastes anything into ChatGPT, no one copy anything from ChatGPT and then paste it and move on. You'll hate yourself. Think of ChatGPT as like an intern that does 90% of the work for you, and then you do like 10% to clean up the language and all that stuff. Like, it's not perfect. So please don't go, oh, the guy's trying to do it, I copied it, and then it sounds like a robot. So like, whatever. So this is a little bit like edited, but you'll get the point. So it gives me the presentation focused on personal and professional development, conflict resolution, creating a positive work environment through adult development theory. That's page 1. Page 2, what was the background? Rel Moody is an experienced speaker known for his engaging, interactive, his unique approach combines humor and actionable insights. This is all from the data. People saying he was funny, he was actionable. They turned what they said about me into the case study, right? They talk about what was covered in the presentation based upon the audience feedback. I then put in the data of what the 107, this one I crushed it. This 100% found the value. That like almost never happens, right? Like, as speakers, we get excited sometimes about our own stuff, right? Yeah, whatever, right? Is that real? Yeah. Is that real? And then we take qualitative impact. So attendees praised Rel's energetic, engaging, personal presentation style. Many highlighted his ability to make content relatable, applicable to both personal and professional contexts. This is all their language, and then here's a link to the full data report so you can see this, right? Here's what the impact was. So it takes what people said, and it summarizes the 117 testimonials and turns it into like 3 or 4 bullet points of what the impact was, right? Here's a conclusion, and then I insert the, if you're not taking a group picture, if you're not doing this, what are you doing? Get every single event, you better get that group picture, okay? It's good material. So I included the group, that's me right there, that's the group I spoke to, and then this information. So I turn it into a case study. I send that case study to my host, and I say, oh my gosh, thank you so much, I wrote this case study for the event. Thank you so much for having me, I want you to share with this. You know what they do with that? They put that in their annual review. Their annual report, that's where that goes. Ooh, it's really fun. Like, I never ask, but it's already done for them. And don't they want to showcase the good stuff they're doing on their campuses and in their organizations, but they don't want to do the work. And if I'm willing to bet anything, most of your clients hate ChatGPT, so they probably don't want to use it because they're afraid it's going to steal their job. So they don't need to know that you did this in ChatGPT. And technically, you own it because the way that's how AI works. Anyway. Now, what do you think I do with this? I send it to other clients who are land and expand. I have a case study of a program that I did at blah, blah, blah. I'd like to share the case study with you. Here's what we did. It's a case study. Don't you want to read a case study? I always want to read case studies. Okay. Next thing, executive summaries. Okay. So I go, hey, ChatGPT, please turn this data into a one-page executive summary. And then I copy all my testimonials, I copy all my quantitative data, and then I paste it, okay? Let me pull up, where is it? Here we go. So this was a one-page summary. We analyzed the qualitative feedback and this summary of the top 3 takeaways. So these 3 is what ChatGPT gave the top 3 takeaways that my audience had from my presentation based on the audience's feedback, okay? Insight into adult development, improved interaction skills, engaging presentation of complex ideas, right? Here's, survey responses. I always click back. If you want to go really fun into this, speakers don't do data. They don't. So when you can do things like this and always link back to your data to prove you didn't just make it up, that's valuable. So always want to link back to your report so that people know you're not just like blowing smoke, right? So it's just a one page. I mean, it's a little bit longer than one page. That's how I printed it, right? But this is, and I send this to my host. This is, because you know what? They're going to look at my report. I got this one had 237 testimonials. They're not going to read all 237 testimonials. They're going to read the first page, but now they can read a one-page summary of what happened. How many speakers do you think do that? It takes nothing. It's amazing. Get a press release written on your presentation. Now you get some media. Okay? So let me show you what it looks like. Hey ChatGPT, please turn the following presentation event feedback that I received as the keynote speaker at the United Way New York State Conference to executive members into a press release. Then I copy all my testimonial data, paste it, copy all my qualitative data, and it does this. Check this out. This is amazing. Arel inspires and engages at the United Way New York State Conference. New York, blah, blah, blah. Arel Moody, the New York speaker, blah, blah, blah. From a pool of 94 responses, 98% found it interesting hearing what a speaker Arel's ability to connect with audiences is amazing. This session lauded unique, blah, blah, blah. The attendees recognized Arel's vibrant energy and highlighted the session. One participant shared, your detailed insight is invaluable. Your energy is infectious. A Bosnian refugee in the audience expressed, I'm a refugee from Bosnia and whose family struggled when we arrived to the United States. And listening to your story about living in New York City, the picture was so easy for me to relate to. Thank you for giving those of us who didn't have a head start a voice of inspiration. It's crazy. But if you don't have data and you don't have feedback, you've got to come up with this. And then if you don't, I'm not going to sit down and write this. And if you've ever paid for media, it costs a lot of money to get. That's why these people are freaking out about their jobs, because I don't need a media consultant to write PR and press releases. And you don't do it. You know why? Because you don't want to spend $500 to get a press release written. That's why you don't do it. But now I do that. So what I do with this, I can send it to my host. If you have relationships with media, you can send it. But I spoke to the New York State Conference of United Way. Everyone in the audience is an executive. So I got an email from someone who was like, hey, we're holding one of our global conferences in Jamaica. Would you be interested in keynoting? Yes. That's right. That's the right answer. Yes, I would. Yes, I would. But, so now they get to take this, and if they have a newsletter or if they have their own media, I give them assets. Now, what I am going to start doing, because I realize I don't do this, and I wanted to punch myself in the face when I made this realization, is I can make this part of my deliverables when you work with me. Hey, when you work with me, we're going to do assessments, we're going to do a press release for you, we're going to do an executive summary, and we're going to do a case study. When you work with us, we do that for you because we want you to measure. And let me tell you something, measuring success is huge right now because everyone's looking to cut something. Yeah. I don't know how we're in a full employment recession, but here we are, right? It's a really weird thing. So the more value you can prove, the better. So you may want to put this in, if you're willing to commit to doing it. Again, it's ChatGPT, so it's not like it's a huge lift. It's not. But putting in your deliverables, we do assessments, we do this, and we provide all that data. And if I have to choose apples to apples between this speaker and you do this, and I know that they're probably not, it's kind of fun. You win. Has this been helpful so far? Is this good?
Yes.
Okay, it's good. I genuinely believe that this is going to give you leg. And here's what I love about this the most. I provide value to my hosts because I'm getting data and feedback. Okay. I get speaking leads that I can leverage, turn into more speaking engagements, right? And I get assets, those images that I can turn into more speaking engagements, right? So I can post stuff on social media, I can send them out in emails. It's really, really, really cool. Now, if I were in your shoes, I would be having like 2 questions. One, how much is Talkadot? Because it's not free, right? Like there is a free version of it for sure, but to do all the cool features, there's a pro version. So I'll post it like this. How much is one keynote worth to you? Right, so hypothetically, we have bonuses here. So for those of you who do want to get, we have a couple of users here. For those of you who do want to get one of our pro accounts, in addition to the cool swag that we want to give you, we got these stickers and these pins here that we're going to give to you if you decide to sign up today. We're also going to give you templates for rebooking emails. So for your leads that come in, just send this email out. Everyone who responds positively, send them to Mike. We also will show you how to, so we have the rebooking and then all of the leads you get, what emails to send to them to get them a highest response rate. Copy and paste your information, send it, easy peasy. And then we also give you a cold outreach email using your data. Simple for if you want to do land and expand, here's some things that you can do to outreach to people. We give you all those templates. That's absolutely yours. The other thing that we do, if you don't have a sales system and you want to figure out how to talk to people, we have something called the Super Sales Highway. This is what I've used to close millions of dollars worth of speaking engagements, and it's not based on a script. It's based on asking the right questions in the right order. That's why I love this. I'm never selling. I'm asking right questions, and by the end of this process, the host is typically saying, how do we get a contract? It's never, do you want a contract? Because we're asking the right questions in sequential order to uncover their pains, show how we can solve those pains, and we show you exactly how it works. It's very simple. I've sold this for $1,000. It was part of a $15,000 coaching program I do that I don't do the coaching because I'm doing the software now. That will be yours at no additional cost. And then this is very exciting. You'll get 400 current speaking leads. We have a partnership with a really great organization that mines leads all the time. So when I say 400 current, it doesn't mean that they were current like a month ago. Literally like this week current. So if any of these are folks that you want to reach out to, or if there's new markets, we literally give you the names of the people, their emails, their phone numbers, their titles, their website, the direct link to do their call for presenters. So if you just want to click and just submit, easy peasy lemon squeezy, you'll all get 400 of those. Now you're thinking, how much is it going to cost? Is it 10,000? No, you know what they do in the ShamWow commercials. Is it 5,000? No. Is it 75? No. Okay, it's 35 bucks a month, billed annually. That's it. No upsells, no, like literally it's super simple. We bill it annually, so it's 420 bucks. So easy math so you can understand how that works. Let's say you get $2,500 for a speed engagement. I'm sure you all make way more than that. If you invest 420 bucks, you get one speaking engagement. It's a 595% return on your investment. And if you can't get one speaking engagement after doing all this, like, that says more about you than I think anything else. All right, now, here's also what I'd be thinking if I were you, so I just want to cover this. Why am I using this? I can use this here. I don't really want to pay for another software that I'm never going to use. I get that. I mean, so many of us buy softwares and we're like, I'm going to create looms every day, and then like we don't, right? So here's what's great about our software, because I built it so that people like me would use it. So that's the greatest thing about it. It's a lot of people build softwares not for us, or if they build software for us, typically it's not from people who do what we do. So they kind of like shoehorn. It's fun. Literally, once you take this slide and put it into here, that's it. That's your lift. We generate the slide for you within Talkadot. You put it in here and you just tee up. Please give me your feedback. We tell you how to say it. And then it's done. It's set it and forget it. Then all of the reports get automatically generated. All the leads come in. All the data gets come in. And if you want to connect your thing to Mike and be like, Mike, come on in and grab it, I'm sure like he has a system and he'd be happy to do stuff like this for you. So that's all you've got to do. If you can just take a minute and download the slide and put it in, you're done, okay? So the other thing that we do, because I think this is important, we consistently support you. So it's not like you buy it, we walk away, we say have a good time. Every single week we do onboardings. Every single week. I lead those. So every single week, if you want to learn how to like, hey, I want to use a tool, I want to jump on, I would jump on and show you exactly how to use it. Okay. Second thing we do is AMAs. Once a week I jump on and say, ask me any question about the tool. Any question whatsoever. How do I do this? Or like, hey, this thing's not working. But once a week I also do that. We do what's called monthly town halls. So every month we say, all users, come on in. What do you like about the tool? What's not working for you? Sometimes we skip a month, right? But like this summer was like a little busy. But typically once a month we go, what do you like about the tool? What do you wish the tool would do? And then based on your feedback, that's how we iterate and make it better. And we also make announcements of new features and new things that we're doing as well. So we're very much engaged in your success. We do pro trainings. So like all that cool stuff that I showed you today, we monthly will do a topic of some sort to say, here's a cool way on how you can do X or Y. And I generally think we have best-in-class customer support. I don't know if you guys have ever reached out to Hello at Talkadot before. You get an actual response from an actual human in America, right, who speaks English very, very well, who cares, who goes above and beyond, right? Not to disrespect people from other countries, it's just sometimes harder when people don't get it, right? We give you busing, and it's $35 a month billed annually. That's it. So you have to ask yourself, if I had the Talkadot software, email templates, the exact sales scripts, 400 events, hiring speakers right now, ongoing support, do you think you can book one speaking engagement? I hope this is a no-brainer. I really, really do. It's going to make your life easier. It's going to make Mike's life easier. Okay? So next steps, out of curiosity, did anyone find this valuable? Was this helpful? Okay. Well, I would love to know your thoughts about this presentation. So if everyone could be so kind and take your phones out, you're going to see a slide that's popped up on the screen with a QR code. If you could go ahead and scan this QR code, I would love to know what you liked about this presentation so I can continue to do more of it. I would love to know what you disliked about this presentation so I can improve upon it. And the only way I can do that is with your feedback. So if you go ahead and scan this, and as a thank you, if you put the word case, like case study, into the screen, and if you scan the QR code, it'll automatically pop up for you. Just give me your feedback. At the end of the feedback, you're going to see a little gray button that says Get Your Bonus. If you click on that, there will be a link for you to sign up for your Talkadot account, if you'd like to do that. And as a thank you for taking action today, if you sign up for it, I will go into the system and I will give you a discount, meaning we'll refund back some of your money. So for year one, it'll only be $374 instead of $420, okay? So I'll give you a little bit of a fast action bonus discount if you click on that Get Your Bonus and then sign up for your Talkadot. And if you come up to me and say, hey, Arel, I have a Talkadot account, I'll give you a sticker and I'll give you a pin because you're now part of the Talkadot unicorn family. And why are we unicorns? Because no one else uses data and we do. That's why we're unicorns. So I'll give you 2 minutes. When you are done filling it out, please feel free to look up and then I will rippity wrap it up fully and leave you with one final thought before we go.
Can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
So, do you ask for permission first before using the?
I don't.
You just like. Does it matter what type of speech it is? Like you can do that at graduation speech thing.
Yeah, I mean, you got to kind of know your audience a little bit. Like, if it was a commencement speech, I probably wouldn't do it, you know? But if it's like a keynote, a training, a PD, if I go to an event and they have their own feedback software, like if I notice they're using it, I will say, hey, I know you're using a tool to get feedback for the overall conference. I have a tool that I use to get feedback just for me. Would it be okay if I use it? I've never had someone say no. The biggest thing is you don't want to cannibalize their data. So I always tell them, I will use this for me, but I'm going to promote yours as well from the stage. And I do that. I say, so what I would say differently, which you just saw, was pretty much what I do, is I say, this feedback is for me. Your host or the host is going to ask you for their own feedback for the overall conference. Please fill that out as well. So most speakers don't say anything about it on stage. But since I'm collecting feedback anyway, I promote theirs. Never had an issue. But if someone ever says, if you can't collect what's called PI, personal information, they will typically tell you beforehand. If it's like there's certain corporations that go like, you can't collect any PI, right? If that's true, they will tell you beforehand because they don't want to risk it. And if they say no, with our tool, you have the option of turning off the collection of personal information. So you can, as you build out your tool, so it's just for feedback. So you go, hey, totally respect that. A version of the tool I use won't collect anyone's personal data. It'll just give us feedback. Is that okay? And if they say no, I don't do it. But no one's ever said no. Yeah. Yeah, please.
How many years have you been professionally speaking, and at what point in your journey when was the pivot point when data is the difference maker? Like, when was that aha moment?
17 years I've been speaking. We've been doing this for 2 years, Talkadot, a year and a half, technically. I started doing assessments for my presentations probably 7 years ago, but I hated doing it. It was all manual. So I would do, like, again, nothing against SurveyMonkey. It's a fine tool, but I would do SurveyMonkey and it was ugly. So I would do screenshots of it and post it into a Google Doc because I didn't want to pay someone to do it. And then like I probably should pay someone to do it, but then I got to find someone who's really good and someone who's not going to suck and someone who's reliable. And then I want to do it you know how we all like, I'll just do it myself. I could do it better than anyone else could do it anyway, right? So what would happen is I did it very sporadically. I did not do it consistently. So the reason why we built Talkadot was because of that lived experience I had of I would like to do assessments. I think assessments are great. But then it was also like, I don't really know how to do an assessment.
It's just a hassle too.
Yeah, I don't really know how to build it. And like, I got to get like, so like we did all that work for you, you know? So now you just put up the slide and you look like a genius. And this whole thing was built because of my frustrations and what problems I'd want solved for me. And they happen to be in the lived experience. So about 7 years ago, I started doing it very sporadically. Since March of last year, I've been using it. We opened up the tool to other speakers in June. Yeah, so technically like a year and a month, other people have been using it, but I've been doing this since March of last year.
So I have one more question.
Please.
Thanks for asking.
Yeah, of course, of course.
So I have a lot of clients where it'll be the same institution with multiple events.
Mhm.
So for example, a school district will hire me and say, can you speak to 11 schools across 5 days?
Mhm.
And so I do 11 Talkadots.
Mhm.
But is there a way to, instead of one audience 400, in reality for the week it was 5,500, can you show it to clump all of them together because it's one client
Yeah, of course.
versus like
Yeah, it's great. I'm gonna show you how to do it. It's real quick. It's
The data is what you're saying?
super easy. This is a great question. I'm glad you're asking this. Okay, so let me go to my actual page. Hold on. So here's what you would do. So number one, you're not using 11 different Talkadot codes for each 11. You're using one slide, right?
yes.
Okay, because you only need to use one slide. It'll separate the reports for you. Now, all you got to do is, let me see one where I did multiple presentations. Okay, here, right? So Insurance Agents of Michigan and then Big I, Michigan. So if I wanted to combine these two presentations, I just click here, then click here, and then click here to merge selected events into this event. I'm not going to actually do it, but then I hit confirm, and then it takes all the data and goes boom, and then you get one report. Yeah. So what you could do is if you wanted to, just as you didn't ask this question, but you could do this. Like I could click on, go to share this report, download this image individually, just so I have that, and then merge them all together.
And it'll be double the number or whatever. Okay.
Yeah, so it's like 500 people. Then you'll have one report for all 500, but you also have the individual in case a school goes, well, what did my students say?
Sure.
Yeah, that's how you do
Way
it.
to do it.
Yeah. So that's what I would recommend.
So I guess this is a question to kind of get your feedback on it, right? So
Yeah.
I did a presentation a few months ago at the Graduate Conference. Everyone basically loved it. It was great. I got great energy, everything like that. I did the same presentation a few months later,
Yeah.
and the energy I didn't get the same response that I got the last time.
Sure.
So,
Very common, by the way.
yeah. So how do you put yourself in a mind to kind of push through and not like think about the 12 that didn't like it or like, so because when I did it the second time and I didn't get a great response, I'm thinking like I have to do the whole presentation, no one's gonna like it anymore, it sucks. Like,
Did you get feedback on both?
I asked them and like,
This was pre-Talkadot, or did you use Talkadot? Or did you not
I
use
wasn't
Talkadot?
able to use the Talkadot, but I tried to ask for feedback, but like you said, they would never tell you in your face, like.
Yeah, so I'll give you a personal story and then I'll tell you how I did it. So let me pull up the one where that happened to me. So this event was on June 27th. This event was on June 28th. Exact same presentation. It was it was a 7-hour event. It was like super big, right? First event, OMG. I got a 1-minute video. If you want to see it, I'll show you. Great. Second one, absolutely sucked. In my opinion. Trash. It was I was like, I almost was like, you shouldn't pay me for the second one. It was trash, right? But look at this. First one, 100% found me valuable. Second one, 100% wanted to reattend, 98% found it valuable. Your thoughts aren't always what the reality of the situation is. I have spoken to events where I thought I've sucked, and they've brought me back. And I'm like, why in the hell would you bring me back? Because you are way more critical of yourself, number one, than anyone else will be. Because you know what your best is, but that audience doesn't. And I like to think sometimes like 40% of how good we are is 100% of good as most of the speakers that they see. So number one, the reason why data is also important is for that. So you can measurably go, what was the audience's experience? That was my opinion of it. Because your opinion would be like, it should have been here, but it was here. But for them, they were like, changed my life. You ever had one of those days where you think, you ever had that person in the audience who looks like they hate you, and then they walk up and say, oh my God, you changed my life?
It happened to me last year. Like,
Yeah. And you're like, you?
This
Right.
dude was sleeping. He was sleeping in the representation, and he came up to me. How can I bring you to my school? I need you to talk to all my.
But you see how that happened to you?
Yeah.
So that could be just that person. That's their face. That's their, I don't know, what do they say, like RBF or whatever they call it, right? Like that could just be their face, or that could be how they, like you don't know. So number one is data is helpful because it will tell you. And when you suck, people will tell you. They love telling you actually when you suck, okay? So that's number one. Number two, you gotta look at what were the environmental differences. Why did I suck in the second presentation? I was in a gymnasium. Have you ever done a presentation in a gymnasium? It's the worst. So what happens is the back of the room, you can barely hear me. So you gotta focus to hear me. And that might work for 45 minutes. But 7 hours? They're checking out and it's not my fault, it's just that like they can't hear. So what were the environmental differences? That's the first question I asked myself. Second is, what was the audience differences? I did a presentation at the University of Chicago to a bunch of engineers. I did not do well. Because I'm jumping on tables. And these are engineers. They're like, what are you doing, bro? Like, just give me what we came here for content, not for like theatrics. So I had to learn, oh, next time I go to like engineers, I gotta be a lot more like surgical with my content. I can't be too waka waka. Certain times you gotta be waka waka, pie in my face, right? And sometimes you gotta be like, surgical with it, right? So you gotta ask yourself, what was the audience difference? Younger, older, physical, was there a physical demographic difference? Like were you in rural and urban in one, right? So I'm looking for what are the differentiators. So it's not about my content, it's also about my delivery, it's about those differentiators. And then I might go, well, how would I, next time I'm at this audience, change my approach? Like I used to be super waka waka and I would go into the hood and I was like, they would eat me alive if I was waka waka in the hood. I gotta go back to the Brooklyn version of me, Like I gotta be a little bit more Brooklyn because I know, so like you ask yourself, what are the areas I can improve upon? What are the X factors that were outside of my control that I can try to control? Why do I think it went wrong? What are they saying in the feedback? Like that's why Talkadot's important. Were they saying you were too corny? Were they saying that like I couldn't understand you? Were they saying that like the microphone was bad? Because maybe it's environmental. If they're hungry, cold, and can't hear you, yo, you put me in front of a hungry audience that's cold and can't hear me, any one of you is gonna suck. Tony Robbins is gonna suck. Les Brown's gonna suck. E.T. is gonna suck. You know what I'm saying? Like there's few things that trump, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So that's what I would do. I would look into all those things and then make the changes accordingly. Yeah. What's up, brother?
Yeah. I'm just curious. Have you tried kicking out your press releases, and has anyone picked it up?
I don't. I send them to my clients.
You said, okay.
I don't have relationships with media.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So if I did, I would, but I assume my host does. So yes, we've had articles written, we've been in annual reports, and sometimes even if they don't, I don't care.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I just want them to be like, wow.
That's a great value add. Yeah.
It's a huge value add. Yeah. So if I like had media contacts and I built that up, or like, because one of the things I've never done, which like now I hate myself for, when you speak at events and they bring the local like news people, like I should have been getting all those people's contact information. Yeah, right now, because before I was like, well, what am I gonna do with the press release from Kentucky, like in like, Northwest Kentucky, like I live in New York, I'm not gonna, like, I didn't see it, but now I'm like, man, that person could be somewhere else. I could be like, hey, I'd love to come out to Kentucky, or maybe I'd love to do an interview, right, which is like super valuable, like, hey, like here's this thing that happened, can we, like I wasn't thinking that smart, so now, like, when I have like actual media, because typically events I'm doing are more conference-based. Conferences don't have media show up to them, but on college campuses, you do get media to show up. But if you also can give them a press release from a previous one, that might help them get media. Because the other thing that knows, and I know this about colleges, and if you haven't had this happen to you, you will. Who's here ever done a college presentation like 3 kids showed up? And the host is like, I just spent how much per head? So like if you can get TV or you can get like other assets to make it better than like the 3, like I remember at University of North Florida, 2 kids showed up for a 9:30 in the morning presentation. And they spent a lot of money for me to be there. And I was like, I don't even know what to do with 2 people in the audience. Like, do I sit down? Do we even do it? You know what I mean? So,
But success isn't determined by the number of people who show up. It's determined by the experience of those who did.
I wish all colleges felt the same way. I do. Because I know that they're counting heads. Because I've seen speakers where 700 people will show up. Like, y'all remember Snooki, because we're near Jersey Shore? You remember? She came to speak at my university, sold out the stadium. She didn't say anything relevant. She didn't say anything relevant. But they were so happy. And it's like, that's not success. I agree with you. That's not success. Because she was like, I'm not going to make fun of her. She's a fine person, right? But like, it wasn't of value. And then if 5 people are there and it's of value, but I know that they count heads.
But you impacted those 2 people tremendously.
I agree.
Right.
You will find no disagreement from me. I'm just saying my hosts, a lot of them will like, but that's why the data is also important, because if it's just 3 people were there and they said it was good, speaking is ephemeral. It's gone very quick. After your hour keynote, it's gone. But now you can show them like, here's what those 3 people said. Let's take those 3 testimonials, and those are the 3 that I highlight because it's just 3. Now they've got something that they can do, that can hold on to. And they're executives who, because the other thing is like, it's embarrassing. And again, I think about what they think about that they won't tell me. And they're thinking, if my boss came in and saw this and saw how much I paid for this, they're going to be upset. But look what the feedback says. Look what the data says. So like, I try to think about how to make their life always easier.
Yeah, and I think that's why what he said about that part when you said the CFO's writing a check and they ask me, what am I writing this for? I have actually seen that. I've sat in a room with the CFO who said, what's this? And then the guy is writing a check, and I have heard the CFO go, well, was it any good? Is it worth it? And so for you to have, an executive summary, which creates a business case, that's why that part is so important. Even though
I'm not
valuable.
dismissing that. I just know we're living in an age of lessened engagement.
Yeah,
And then for those who
I
do
agree.
engage, we're very powerful.
And
I don't want to beat ourselves up because 3 people show up.
Agreed.
The conversation.
Agreed.
Or 300 people show up.
Agreed. 100% agreed. Yeah.
So over your 17 years, how do you think about your rates, and like how has that progressed over your?
Yeah, you ask till they say no. Like I'm fine if everyone says yes, you're charging too low.
Okay.
That's my rule of thumb that I've chosen. Like if everyone says yes, it's too low. Right? Now, I also am aware that fees are directly correlated to demand, not expertise or content. So you could be the best speaker on your topic, but if I don't want you or I don't know you, it's a demand. So if I have high demand, people want me, well, yeah, if you are coming to me and you want to book me, I can charge way more than if I came to you to convince you. So ideally getting into a place, and that's why I'm super big on conferences, which I know you are, because I speak at a conference and then people come to me. I don't have to do so much going to people because there's 2 categories of speakers, celebrities and content experts, in my opinion. It matters more that you're in the room than what you say. That's Snooki. Her being in the room is way more important than what she says because people show up. That's a celebrity. A content expert has to deliver good stuff. So we have to be good content experts. And if there is a high demand, I'm looking for a few things. Number 1, what are they paying other people?
How do you know that part?
Typically people who are represented have their fees range published, right? They have a fee range published if they're represented. They give a general fee. I don't know if you do fees or not general published, but a lot of folks do. So I also know what people say they charge and what they got paid for their last 5 speaking engagements are not the same thing. But I at least want to know what ballpark they're playing in. What are they trying to make people believe? So that's number 1, okay? Number 2, I ask friends. Like I build relationships with speakers and go, what are you charging now? Because that's always a question we're curious about, right? What does it look like? Now, when I got into the college market, 2,500 was the base. So when you charge 500, people actually say no to you because you're too low, right? And people think, oh, I'm giving you a good deal. It's 500 bucks. Wouldn't you like that? They go, no, like, it's too low. There's something wrong. But if I came in 2007 and said 10,000, they'd laugh me out, right? So I'm talking to you, and I'm like, well, what range are you got? He's going like 4 to 10. I'm like, in the college market? Blew my mind, because I was like, I had a framework from back in the day. So it's important to have friends. It's important to talk to them and ask them to search. And then, like, I also talk to, when I'm at events, it's also important to build relationships with the hosts, because that's how you also get information. Friends will share information with you, right? Like, so if I'm friendly with them, I'll be like, I'm always gonna give y'all a good deal. But like, what's the most you've ever paid for a speaker? I wanna know, because if they're like, oh, we paid 15,000 and I came in for 5,500, well, now I know there's wiggle room. So if I do hey, we're doing an increase of fees, they're like, fine. Like, I'll give you a perfect example. University I'm speaking to, they brought me in year after year for like a decade. But for like the last 2 years, I couldn't do it for scheduling conflicts. And I let them know, I'm so sorry. And they had other people come in, right? They were paying me $4,000 from like the beginning. And I thought I was like over the moon, like, wow, like, like 10 years, 4,000 was locked in, blah, 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 right? And then I was like, I'm not doing as much anymore. My fees have gone up. It was 15,000, right? I was like, 15,000. And they were like, okay. And they paid it because they had me for 8 years, and then they didn't have me for 2 years. And they had the other people they brought in. And like, for whatever reason, I resonated better with their students and better. So they were like, we'll find the money. Now, when I get there, I want to go, where'd you find that money from? Because I don't think speakers ask that question enough. What funding source did you use to bring me in? That's a very important question I think people don't ask ever. And they'll tell you.
You can ask that question?
Yeah.
What
If
funding
you have a
sources?
good,
You can even
if you have a
recommend
good-
funding
if you have a
sources.
good relationship.
It's the relationship, though.
If you have a good relationship and you can have that conversation, ask the question.
I would go to Eddie all day, every day and say, tell me about your funding sources. I don't know you enough to say that to you. I don't know, like, she might share it with, I don't know her enough. Like, if I built a relationship, but I give a lot of information too. Like, all this stuff, I'm not like, give a good presentation. That's how you get rebooked. That's like what most people say. And I'm like, no, what are you actually doing? So anyway, it's a long answer to a short question, but those are all the things that I do to get a sense of like, where am I matching up? And then if I'm going too low, even if like it's high to you, if it's low to them, they don't trust you. It's weird, but it's true. If you came into a college right now and said, I'm the best speaker in the world, $400, they would laugh at you. But you're like, I'm making $60 an hour at my job. So $400 an hour is like whatever an increase that is, that would be amazing. But I now know you're new. I don't trust you. Or at least I might give you like a throwaway event. So a lot of colleges, they'll do this, and I've spoken to people. They'll take risks on speakers at throwaway events that they don't really care about to see how good you are, but they're not gonna put you on like the main stage of their big conference. They won't do that unless they know you, they like you. So if the demand's high, you can do that. I like to go to APCA occasionally. I used to do this back in the day. I don't do this as much now. I don't know if APCA still does this, but APCA used to post the block booking fees of their speakers. So on APCA and NACA at their conferences, they have their speakers. And they go, if you do an isolated event, it's this. If you do 2 out of 3 events, it's this. So I would go in and go, well, what are the speakers who I think are, what are the top speakers charging? One of the reasons I got out of that industry is because their top speakers weren't charging as much as I wanted to charge. So I didn't want to, I wasn't gonna win, right? But these are the things that I would do.
Do you speak on like, what topics do you speak on? Is it
Now or when I was in college?
Now, is it?
Now I speak, yeah, so now I specifically talk about this research called adult development theory. And basically what it talks about is how our sense of ego, our sense of self actually develops. And there's a 60 years of research that I found that's fascinating and no one knows about it. You know why? Because no one reads academic journals. No one does. Right? I would say no one, but like the real world, academia does. The real world doesn't. So if you're like in Nexus, Lexis, or Google Scholar, or like you'll find treasure troves. treasure troves, right? So anyway, I got presented with this research. I fell in love with it. I read everything I could about it. I loved it. And every time I spoke to someone, do you know anything about ego development? Do you know anything about adult development theory? No one knew. So I was like, you know, oh my gosh, I can now take this really heavy academic stuff, make it simple and understandable, and bring it to organizations so that they can better understand where conflict in their organization comes from and how their leaders can better lead people based upon how the ego develops, our sense of self. Because most people think ego is good or bad. It's not.
So that's the topic you're focused on.
That's
now?
right.
So if someone asked you to speak about something else, would you turn that down because you're focused on this thing?
It
or-
depends what it is. So like this isn't that, but this is part of Talkadot. So like I'm growing the software company in addition to my own speaking. So yes, I'm going to say yes to something like this because the opportunity is there. But if someone said, could you come in and do a financial literacy presentation? I'd be like, I'm not. In the beginning, hell yeah. You know how many unqualified presentations I did? You want to do interview skills? Sure. You want to do public speaking skills? Sure. You want to do leadership development for your graduate level program and I never went to grad school? Sure.
One more question.
Yeah.
Does Talkadot have an affiliate link?
So when you register and create a link in your dashboard, so in your everyone's dashboard, there's a link right here on the top right-hand corner if you click home. So if you just give someone this link right here, it'll give them $50. It'll give you $50 for anyone who goes to pro. It'll give them a free 30-day trial of it. And then if they do register, it'll be $374 for the first year instead of $420. I realize 420 is a weird number now that I think about it. Okay, yeah.
Two questions, and I'll
Yeah.
ask them one at a time. One, I'm curious about, as a professional speaker, what your preparation process is.
Mhm.
So you have your presentation.
Yep.
I know you're likely customizing it to your client, but the presentation and slides are probably like rinse and repeat. You know your material, you know
Yep.
what you're delivering.
Yes.
So when you have that call with your client and you know their objectives and their desired outcomes, I'm curious, what do you do in the preparation process so that you customize it? And then more specifically, when you arrive, are you doing anything the night before, the morning of, above and beyond like tech check and things like that? What is your preparation process?
Yeah, so my biggest desire in my pre-event process, and by the way, the fact that you're even doing pre-event, great job, because most speakers don't. They just come up and like, they'll talk to nonprofits and say, in your business, you've got to figure out how to, like, they don't do any research, so good on you for even doing it. I'm looking for insider language. That's my biggest thing that I'm looking for. What are the words that they're going to use that no one else is going to use, right? Because I want to use language that makes it seem like I understand them. So I asked my host, what is some language, what are some terms that you use that is very specific to your industry that other people might not know? And they typically go, and then they start rattling off alphabet soup, right? Words you've never heard of. What does that mean? How do I use that? Why is that important? So I'm always looking for the language. And then I will incorporate that into my presentation and the audience goes crazy every time. I remember I was doing a presentation for insurance agents. I'm not an insurance agent. I talked to someone about flood insurance and they were saying, I've already forgotten what it was, but it was basically a reference to how flood insurance premiums work and how you really want that 3-month hit to hit because that's when you're guaranteed your payment. And I was like, I know we really care about that guaranteed payment. And they just laughed hysterically because I said something that made them go, he knows us. That's what I'm looking for. So if I'm in like, which part of Tennessee are you in again? Nashville. So I don't know anything about Nashville, right? I've been there before, but I don't know anything about it. So if he was my host, I might go, man, you live in Nashville. What's like the coolest club? Like what's the cool, there's so much great music. What's your favorite? What do people think is good? But like you think, like I'm asking him all these like, tell me about Nashville insider things that I wouldn't know. And then I'll say something like, yo, last night I was thinking about going to like Maria's, but instead I went to Jacob's. And everyone's like, oh, Jacob's! He went to Jacob! You know, whatever it is. They'll go nuts. I'm looking for that. So, and again, sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't. But if I can get that insider language, and then the next thing that I do, so insider language is number one, the next thing that I'm doing is I'm asking myself, how do I make my content relevant to their lived experience? It's not enough to say, here's how the research works. I've got to go, what is the scenario that they're going to be in that I can then use this research that I've learned to better their lived experience on Monday? That takes a little bit of like knowing, you got to know your stuff, but then you got to go to your client. I ask them, you have boots on the ground, you're there every day, I'm not. If you could wave a magic wand and make like your biggest problems go away, what would you want to have go away? And they'll tell you, oh, well, if I could wave a magic wand. And I usually like to premise it with like, hey, you're there every day, you have boots on the ground, I don't. Every organization is different. What's happening there? What would you, so then I go, what are their biggest problems? Okay, now if I can solve them, or at least like, I may not get you into the end zone, but I can maybe move the flags. Then I think about what I'm gonna talk about and go, where can I now insert this specific example of what they're dealing with to help move the flags or get them closer to the end zone, and then I do that. So that's my prep, that's my pre, that's how I take, so yes, everything you said is true. Those slides are the slides that I use, my content is the content that I use, and I'm trying to get that language, and I'm trying to get their specific problems. You do that at any college across the country. What are you dealing with on your campus right now? You're there every day, I'm not. Tell me about it. I wanna make sure I'm solving your problems. And it is magical how many people don't do something like that, right? In terms of my prep process, I just gotta know for me, I don't do word for word memorization, I don't do scripts, I just gotta know my key points. If I know I'm moving from this idea to this idea to this idea, and when I'm driving, I'm just going, I'm gonna start with the rabbi story, and then I'm gonna go into my background story, and then I'm gonna go into the RRLL, then I'm gonna go into this one, so I'm going through in my head, what's my flow? Even if I've done the flow a million times, why does an NBA player shoot free throws? They know how to hit free throws until you stop shooting them, right? So I'm like, I just go through the flow. I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this. I used to dance back in the day. I don't know if anyone's ever, you used to dance? For fun, okay. Well, I didn't dance professionally in any way, but like I was on a dance team in college. I didn't know I had rhythm until I got to college. There was a thing that one of the choreographers said to me, which I've taken and applied to business. They said, don't practice until you know the moves. Practice until you can't get them wrong. And I never forgot that. So when I do my speech, I don't practice it until I know it. I practice it until I can't get it wrong. Someone could come up at any point and yell at me, throw something at me, and I can pick right back up. Right? I can't get it wrong. So like a lot of times you'll see speakers, they're in a flow, and the moment they get interrupted, they're frazzled. I don't know what to do. They know their concept, but they don't know it so that they can't get it wrong. So I'm constantly going through it, and I do this on the drive. I could be talking to you, and in my head, I'm like, I'm gonna do this and this and this. Like I can do that because I've done it so many times, but that's how I practice. I don't actually stand and deliver my talks. I just need to know my points, and then my belief now, for me at this stage, and it may not be applicable for everyone, is just that I know who I am on stage. I used to not. I would say my first 500 presentations, I didn't know who I was on stage. I was very much Les Brown. I was very much Tony Robbins. I was very much like, I was a diet version of every one of your YouTube speakers. Until I was like, who am I? Once I know who I am, well, I can fill in, I just fill in everything with who I actually am. So if I mess up, I mess up. I used to think I had to walk in a V, and I had to, never turn my back to the audience, and all those things that like actually once you're really good doesn't matter. In the beginning it does, but once you're good it doesn't.
Who are you now?
What you saw. Like literally that version of me is who I am everywhere I go. I may turn the volume up, I may turn the volume down, but like I'll sit down, like my accent might come out, I may make a really bad joke, I may make a reference, like I used to think I had to like I thought my humor wasn't gonna like translate, but I realized like that's my humor. I'm not gonna curse. I may curse in conversations, but I try not to curse when I speak. It just doesn't feel right for me. But if I do curse sometimes, because I'm in like adult audiences now, like corporate, it's not like the worst thing in the world. I'm not saying the F word. Like I may be like, damn it, I would never say that in college. I'd be like petrified personally. Other people, they're fine. The other thing is I also learned that I don't want to be one version of me on the stage and then a different version of me when I get off the stage. I meet a lot of speakers that you see them on stage and they're lighted up and you see them afterwards and it's very socially awkward. So I said, I'm gonna be exactly who I am off the stage, on the stage. That took a lot of time.
And that was kind of my question was, how did you find who you are to be that on the stage? Because you listed off, Gary, Tony Robbins, and Les Brown. And all of us as speakers, like we have people who we look up to, who we study, who we train, but like how do you find who you are and like be that person?
I'm aware when my Tony Robbins comes out. I know when I'm being Tony Robbins. I know when I'm being Les Brown. I know when I'm being Brian Tracy. I actually can hear it. Like there's like a part of me watching myself. If I ever go, ah, you know, like I was like, that's Tony, that's not me, right? So what would happen is I would go, what percentage of my talk is someone else and what percentage of the talk is me? I would observe it on the ride home. How much am I going, you know, how many, oh my God, no disrespect, but how many speakers have a t-shirt and a hat on and yell at you like they're Eric Thomas? I mean, and I see it, they're like, you gotta grind when you get up, all right? What I know about everyone in this room is none of y'all gonna outwork me.
How do you think audiences respond to that? Because I think that's complete garbage.
Yeah, I mean,
my wife has a boss right now who thinks he's Tony Robbins, and he's the most disingenuous.
Yeah, that's right.
That's an insult to call him Tony Robbins.
That's
not a
right.
plus.
Because it works for Eric Thomas, it doesn't work for you.
Right.
Look, Eric Thomas can scream at you and you love it. I've seen lots of other dudes scream at people and they're like,
Stop screaming.
stop yelling at me. You have said nothing for 45 minutes. Nothing, right? So what happens is I'm aware of at what point do I feel like that's more Tony than that is Arel. Now, sometimes I don't know how to fill me in. You ever see the dude do the laugh? It's like, that's a Les Brown laugh. Stop doing a Les Brown laugh, right? So if I ever noticed myself, I would just say, what percentage of me is Eddie Francis? What percentage of me is Jonathan Sprinkles? What percentage of me is like the peers? That like I go like, also look at peers and go, what percentage of me is them? And then slowly I start going, how would I say that? And at first you don't know. You gotta do like 500 presentations before you know. And you gotta be willing to try stuff and fail. Because then you might go, oh, well, like part of me would do this. And you try and you was like, I was so uncomfortable. Don't do that again. If you're uncomfortable, don't do it. But if you're comfortable, do it. And I don't know what that is. You gotta try. You gotta be willing to fail. So what I would do typically is in the beginning, I would try to take like 90% of my talk and do it the same way, but change 10% of it. And if that 10% went well, I would keep it. And then change another 10%. If that would do badly, I would go back. And then, so if I do well 90% of the time, that 10 cents. So maybe my opening I change. Maybe my closing I change. Maybe the way I tell the story. Maybe I'm sitting down. Maybe I'm standing up, right? So I make I'll tell this whole story standing up, then I'll tell the exact same story sitting down. How did I feel when I did it? And if I feel more comfortable sitting down, I'll sit down. As long as people aren't like if they give me a lot of negative feedback, in our culture, sitting down is the most disrespectful, like, oh gosh, I didn't know. Like, I won't do that in that cultural situation or whatever. So I think that's how you find yourself. But in the beginning, you have to be a diet version of your favorite person, as long as you realize that's temporary. And I think all of us were someone else before we were ourselves on stage, I think. Yeah.
My second question is related to mindset and confidence, because earlier you made a comment, I believe you said something about imposter syndrome, just like in passing. We're all human, self-doubt is normal, and obviously seeing the reviews can trigger that inner critic and things like that. What do you do in those moments? Because we're all going to, when we're getting outside of our comfort zone and we're doing something that we haven't done before, or we're expanding and stretching ourselves, have some fears and doubts. What do you do, or what have you done that helps build up your confidence, that helps you silence that inner critic, rise above imposter syndrome? Because we're human and we're going to experience that.
Yeah.
What do you do on those days when you need a kind reminder
It's a good question.
of who you are and how amazing you are and the impact you make in the world?
Yeah, it's a good question. So this is a very personal answer. I don't know if it's applicable to anyone but me. I personally want to be in the top 1% of this industry. I don't ever think I'll be the best. I think that anyone who says I want to be the best speaker, I think Les Brown is not better than Tony Robbins. They're different, but they're in the top 1. Like if there was a club, Les is in it, Tony's in it. Okay? I want to be in the club, right? So I ask myself, if I want to be in the club, that 1% club, well, how do I got to show up to be in the club, right? So I take a lot of parallels from sports. Why is LeBron still waking up working on drills? He's proven everything he needs to prove. LeBron loses the finals. He's in Kobe is, I don't know if you like him or not, is irrelevant. If you watch his interviews, he speaks to my soul. When Kobe talks about his work ethic, and his like waking up. And I look at this as my NBA. This is my professional athlete. So I'm gonna win, I'm gonna lose. It's natural. Athletes say you gotta have a short memory, you know, like so you gotta lose and be like short memory. I got another game, right? I don't think I would ever say to myself I should hang it up. There's a lot of speakers who are fly-by-nighters because they think it's easy. This is my art. This is my art form. And here's the great thing about speaking, and I just like this is what I discovered that was very helpful. There is a belief that all speakers have, which is not true, that if you suck, you'll never get booked again. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves that every presentation has to be amazing, and it doesn't. Unless you say something misogynistic, sexist, race. Like if you do one of those, yeah, you will get blackballed. But if you're literally trying and you just didn't nail it, we think an email's gonna go out to every coordinator across the country. Don't book this person. I brought them in and they suck. Don't do it. They've moved on with their day. I could literally suck every day. There's speakers right now getting paid a lot of money and they suck every day. But they keep showing up and there's no other options. It's a small pool of speakers that speak in the college market. So they gotta get that guy who's like, there's some people who are like still like popping in VHS tapes, you know, and they're like outdated, antiquated, but they keep showing up and there's no one else to choose and they keep coming, so they show up. So I said, I wanna be in the top 1%. If I suck at anything, that means I can improve upon it. And I wanna be in the top 1%, so I will improve upon it. So yes, it sucks. Yes, it hurts. Yes, I lick my wounds and all that stuff. But if you want to be great in this industry and this is your art form, well, you have to look at it. For me, I look at it like a professional athlete. And I go, okay, well, how do I get better at it? And the difference between this and professional athlete is that once you hit like 32, you're on the decline in almost any athletic endeavor. In this sport, you can only ascend. Like Zig Ziglar was killing it when he was super old. Like, killing it. You know what I mean? Jim Rohn, in his later years, I still listen to Jim Rohn stuff and go, wow. So literally, you can only get better at this. That's amazing. Like, what a gift to have something. Like, again, I love this. This is my art form. It's an endless endeavor. So if you only look at it as a finite thing of like, I'm doing this because it's easy money, I want to get money, then yeah, you'll lose your confidence and quit. But if you actually look at this as like, this is my endless, it's called Infinite Games. Simon Sinek wrote a book about it. Finite games are like a basketball game. Infinite game is like this, like getting better as a speaker. So if you're playing an infinite game, it never ends. So that's how I approach it. Again, that's very personal, but that's how I see it. You're welcome.
All right, well, thank you so much, Rel, for your time. I appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to say, Michael, thank you very much. We went so far over how long we're supposed to, but thank you for allowing. This is stuff I care about. I really genuinely care about. And I don't get to talk about this stuff at this level because in person creates a different level of like togetherness. So the fact that we could be here and do it, I just want to say thank you for the space. Thank you for using Talkadot to Yao. If anyone signs up, please let me know. I can give you a sticker and a pin. But generally, I love talking about this stuff. It's my passion. So thank you, and thank you to Eddie for believing in me when I was like 22 and sucked. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. You want to do the